Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. How are you, students? How were the essays that you wrote in the last lesson? Now, there was a big chance to write about a personality that you admire, write a descriptive essay about him or her. So we're going to revise what we have in our unit and what we did. We had the writing lesson. Now, in the writing lesson we have here, we wrote actually a descriptive essay about a person's life. Now we have, of course, of the person's life in order. This is something that we have to put in mind using the timeline that we explained. We also had something about the G20. We did a lot of tasks during this topic here. We scanned the text to find out about different points that we mentioned throughout the lesson. We also had this task, which is to search for verbs, and we searched for different forms of verbs. There was also a question, are passive sentences used in any sections? Why or why not? So sometimes when you are focusing on something, you do not need who did this action. You want to focus on the event that you have. So sometimes you can use the passive to focus on the event or the action instead of the person. So we're going to move and see what else do we have here. We mentioned these verbs. These are the ones that we highlighted. We revised the past forms and also the past perfect. The past perfect was one of the forms that we had, which is here. We have here had assumed. Now, since we are talking about verbs, we're going to do more searching. Now you're going to search for verbs. Here, I want you just to scan with me quickly. We can search for verbs. You can start one by one. Now, each sentence, just to highlight what are the verbs that you can spot. We have here, you can work together. You have 10 seconds just to scan quickly. Okay, so let's just start. We have 4, 3, 2, and 1. So what do we have? You can see that we have different verbs. Let's say, like was born. We have also adopted, grew up, became, dropped, could not, co-founded. Now here, these verbs, what do you notice? That they are all in the same tense. We have also proceeded in the same tense. Okay, so this is the second paragraph. You can see that we have both personalities that we discussed in the first lesson, which is listen and discuss. So also, please just search for the verbs here. Now you are going to search for different verbs. You can find that they are in the same tense as before, or maybe they are in different tenses. So the basic thing is just to search for the verbs that you have. Now we can move on. 3, 2, and 1. Yes, okay, so we have a verb, which is runs. We have also has created. We have has contributed, has been named. So let's just use this timeline and recall what are the verbs that we highlighted. Now we can see that we have here the past was mentioned, and also we have these verbs. We have here was, adopted, became, dropped, and co-founded in the first paragraph about Steve Jobs. And then there was something about the present, but let's see, which present are we talking about? You can see that the verbs were runs, has created, has contributed, and has been named. So these are different verbs that are, or there were mentioned in the two paragraphs. You can see that we have here 3 tenses. We have the first one, which is the past. We have runs, which is the present simple. And then there is a present, but a different kind of present. What is it? We have here has created, has contributed, has been named, which means that we have here the present perfect. Now we are going to move on with our lesson. Our lesson is going to be in the form, meaning, and function. Now the form, meaning, and function is going to be about the two tenses that I just mentioned. We have here the past and we have here also the present, but I have the present perfect specifically. So we are going to move on with our lesson. We have the objectives. To identify the two grammar patterns, I'm going to focus on the two grammar patterns. Now I did mention the present and then I said the present perfect, so you can notice the difference between the two types. So we have the past simple and the present perfect simple and their uses. We have number 2, to distinguish the differences between the time expressions for and since and apply them in sentences. We have number 3, to apply the past simple and the present perfect in sentences using different time expressions. We have number 4, to ask questions using how long or how have you ever seen. Or have you ever, sorry. We have here number 5, express personal experiences using time expressions. Now you saw that I just said, have you ever seen? Because we are going to learn that we also use a specific form of a verb. So we're going to move on with our lesson and learn from the things that we have. First of all, I want to start with a very simple task here. We have the task, you can see that we have here 12 sentences. Now the idea of the 12 sentences is to see, can you give the exact time when did this action happen or not? So if you can just check can. If you cannot, you can check cannot. We have the first one. I have heard about the ozone layer. Can you give the exact time when you have heard about the ozone layer? So here we can agree that we have here can't or cannot. I slept early at 8 o'clock. Here in this sentence you can see that there is an exact time. When did you sleep? I slept at 8 o'clock. So which means that I can. We ate pasta for dinner when? Last night. So this one we can. Ahmed went to Jeddah last week. When did he go? Last week, which means that he can. Everyone has seen Al-Mamlaka. So there is no time mentioned, which means that we can't. The room has been cleaned. Do you know when was the room cleaned? No. So we have here can't. You didn't do the homework yesterday. So there is a homework missing. When? Yesterday. We can give a specific time. Rana cleaned the room yesterday. Also there is a specific time mentioned. I have played tennis since I was a little girl. So since I was a little girl, but there is no specific answer here, or there is no specific time. So there is nothing exact. So I'm going to agree that we have here can't. We have lived in Riyadh for 15 years. Also, there's no exact time. They visited Amal last Monday. So here there is, and now you can see that what is the difference between the two types of sentences. We have the last one. Ali has fixed the car. Also, there is no exact time, which means that we can't. Now, this is going to be the first task that we have in our lesson. And as we mentioned that we have the present perfect, we're going to see the difference between the present perfect and we have here the past simple. So moving on with our lesson, we are going to focus first of all on the present perfect. Focus on the present perfect. So what do you have? I'm going to go back to my sentences here. Now I'm going to cover the first type of yes. Here you can see that I just left the sentences that we cannot give exact time. Now if you notice that there is something in common between all of these sentences, you can see that we have the two helping verbs in the sentences, either have or has. Another point is when we use the has or have in the sentence, what form of the verb do we use? Is it in the present? Is it in the past? Or the past participle? And you can see very clearly that we have the past participle, either regular or irregular. So we have here, I have heard, has seen, has been, have played, have lived, and has fixed. These are different sentences that we have here. So what is the present perfect? We studied now, or we just observed the structure of the sentence using has or have plus the past participle. But as meaning, we want to make sure, when do we use the present perfect? Now we use the present perfect to connect between the two tenses. So there is a connection, or there is a result or an effect or something that is still happening. So we have here something that started from the past. We're going to use either has or have done. It connects the past with the present. Now we have the plural form, of course, uses have. The singular uses has. Both of the two helping verbs go with the past participle. When do we use the present perfect? Now I mentioned that we connect between the past and the present. So specifically, when do we use it? We know that the present is something, the past is something that happened in the past and ended. But now in the present perfect, there's a kind of connection. So we use it to talk about actions that started at an indefinite time. So as we applied in our exercise, you cannot give an exact time for something that happened. Another thing we have here, like for example, we have here, I have visited many countries. There's no specific time. Moving on, we have another point, which is to talk about the time from the past to now in a person's life. So as I mentioned, there is some kind of connection that is still moving on or going on now. Now we have here, for example, my father has worked in many places. So in the past, he has worked in many places and he is still now working at the present time. Another point is to talk about recently completed actions. So I am in the present. If something has recently been completed, I can use the present perfect. Now, for example, we have here, he has contributed to the Saudization program, recently completed. It's still done, or has been done. We have here, after that, the last point, we can add to emphasize or emphasis an action that started in the past and has continued until now and may continue in the future. So something is still going on, starting from the past, and may even go on to the future. So we have here, for example, we have lived in Riyadh for all our lives and we are still living and moving on. Now this time, I'm going to focus on the past simple instead of the present perfect. Now we know how is the structure of the present perfect and when do we use the present perfect. Moving on to the past simple, we have here, I'm going to focus this time on the other part of the sentences. Now what did you notice here? Now when we look at these sentences, you may notice that we have here just one verb that is used in the past. Is there a helping verb here in the sentence? So as long as it is an affirmative sentence, you just use the past tense of the verb. You can see that we have here, I slept, we ate, Ahmed went, you didn't do. So why did we use here didn't do? There is a helping verb because the sentence is in negative. Rana cleaned and they visited. So as I mentioned, all of these sentences have one verb unless you have a question or a negative statement. So the past simple is something that happened in the past, and from the timeline here, you can see that there is no connection with the present time. Of course, there are regular and irregular verbs. It happened in the past and ended in the past. As we mentioned, no connection. And there is something very important that we use for negatives and questions. As we mentioned, we have the helping verb did. One verb used for the singular or the plural. Now we have explained the difference between the structure. I'm going to see the meaning. What is different for the past simple? Now use the past simple for what? We can say to talk about actions that happened in the past and are finished. As we mentioned, there is nothing. For example, he fixed the car. Now he fixed the car. Is he still fixing? No, he fixed it and it's done. So we have here an action that is completed. Also, we can mention that to talk about actions that started at a definite time. So as you saw in the exercise, that we can give the exact time. In the past, as we mentioned, the exact time is given. I slept 10:30 last night. I gave 2 times an exact time in the same sentence. So we have did. When did you sleep last night? I didn't sleep late. You can see that we have here did one time in a question and the other time in negative. Okay, now we have showed the difference in structure and the difference in meaning between the two structures, the past simple and the present perfect. Now it's time to see what are the different time expressions that I can use with the two structures. Now, if you have the past simple, you can use different expressions or the phrases like yesterday or the words. We have here last week, 2 months ago, and etc. If you are using the present perfect, we have here yet, so far, ever, never, already, recently, lately, once, twice. All of these words can be applied within the sentences. Asking questions with how long. So here specifically, I'm going to ask a question about how long. Now, if I ask about how long, I'm asking about a duration. Now we're going to ask different questions. We have here examples. We can say, for example, how long have you been in the office? I'm asking about the duration of you being in the office. And notice that we are using the structure, the present perfect. How long have you been? How long has she known Amal? So since we are using a singular here in this sentence, we have here has she known. How long has he taken the course? And we have here how long have they lived in Jeddah? Also, you can notice that we are using the past participle with the helping verbs. I have been in the office since 9 o'clock. We have here another one. She has known Emma since she was a child. We have the answer, he has taken the course for a month. And also we have the answer, they have lived in Jeddah for 5 years. So in these sentences also, if you have the question, you're going to answer in the same tense, which is going to be the present perfect in this part. Now, I want you to concentrate in the same sentences on the highlighted parts. What did you notice? We have something in common between the two first sentences and something in common between the second part of the sentences, number 3 and 4. So what we have here, you can see that we have used since. And in the 3rd and 4th, we used the connector for. Now here we have the two sentences. What is the difference between them? When I say since 9 o'clock or since she was a child, I am giving a period of time. But when I say for a month, 1 month, or for 5 years, you can see that there are types of numbers here. I am numbering or counting something. So we are going to move on with the part of for and since with the present perfect tense. Now this is something very important to know, that I am applying for and since with specifically the present perfect tense. Now I mentioned that there is a difference between them. You can see that we have here, I have been in the office since 9 o'clock. She has known Emma since she was a child. We haven't taken a test since last week, and I have had a driving license since I was 18. Now from the underlined part, you can see that I'm talking about different periods. Since can be used with a time mentioned. Now there are different times. We can say, for example, Eid. We can say Ahmed started working here, Ramadan 2001, 12:30. So here all of these are different time periods. On the other hand, we have for. I have waited for my friend for an hour. He has taken an English course for a month. It hasn't rained for more than 2 weeks. They have lived in Jeddah for 5 years. So the thing that these sentences have in common, that they are all countable. We have here something that we can count. It is, of course, a period of time, but it is counted. So we have here, this is something to know about for. Now for can be used with a counted period. There are different ways, for example, 70 hours, a long time, 10 seconds, a decade, 10 minutes, 5 years, 2 weeks. So no matter what I am counting, it is a period of time, but it is counted. So this is the difference basically between for and since, which takes us to the part after that. So I asked, if you are going to ask a question using how long, and you notice that I used the structure using either for or since. I have another part here. I'm going to ask a different question. Now the different question is, how have you ever? So also we have here the present perfect. Have you ever? Now when someone asks you about something, have you ever tried a dish, for example? Let's say, for example, lobster. Have you ever tried lobster? Have you ever done a dangerous sport? Have you ever swam in the ocean? So we have here, I am asking you about experiences. So when you ask someone, have you ever done something, you are asking about the experience of this person in this specific topic. Now, for example, have you ever ordered books online? Yes, so far this year I've ordered 25 books online, or I can answer no, I've never ordered books online, but I've bought other products through the internet. I haven't bought books online yet. I buy them from the bookstore. Now there are lots of interesting points that we can see here. Let's start. Of course, we have here so far. Now so far is a time expression that I can use with this type of answer. We have here, if you are answering by experience, you can say so far, for example. We have another type, which is I have never ordered. We have also, I haven't bought books online yet. So there are different words that can be used, or sorry, different phrases that can be used within these sentences to show. We have your time. Now complete the sentence. We have this exercise that is in the book. Now this is an easy task that we're going to do together. We have here, Hamid has had the same TV blank 15 years. Now what is the question? The question is to use either for or since. So let's read it again together. We have here, complete the sentences with for or since. Now this is an easy task that we have here. You can see that we have here 15 years, which means that I can use for. But when I mention a time period, for example, I've had my laptops last June. Last June is a month, so I can use since. We've worked on this project blank a month. How many months? A month, countable. So we have here, we can use for. My friends haven't visited me, my graduation. So there's nothing counted, and I'm talking about this period, which is my graduation. We have, or this event, we have here since my graduation. Moving on, we have the second part. Now you can see that we have here 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm going to leave these for you. You can answer. So we haven't used our car. Okay, let's just go back a minute. We have here a long time. I've been drinking tea blank years. Tariq has worn glasses blank the age of 7, and blank when you have had that beautiful watch. Now this is going to be homework for you. We have be. Now be in the book, we have here complete the paragraph with the verbs in the parentheses. Use the present perfect or the simple past tense. Now this is the same paragraph they have here about Amancio Ortega. We have different tenses. Now actually they did the first one when Ortega was 13. We have after that, he blank work as a delivery boy for a shirt maker. Now is this something that is connected? Does Ortega still work as a shirt maker? Now we can say that this is something in the past. So we have here worked in the past. And later, blank, the manager of a clothing store. So is he still a manager? Of course not. We're going to use the past, became. He blank began making clothing in his living room and selling it to the local store. So we can, or the local stores, you can see that we are talking about past events that happened. So I'm going to also use here the past. Moving on, we have the same exercise. Ortega blank have an ability to predict what styles were going to be popular. Do you think that Ortega still has this kind of prediction? Now remember that the question asks to apply either the past simple or the present perfect. So how about if this time we use had as the past, and to create these styles with inexpensive materials, you can also say that we have here, he has had. So either questions, it depends on the meaning that you have in mind. You can use both, you can apply them. After that, we have here, over the last 40 years, the clothing store blank gain a reputation for selling designer fashions at reasonable prices. So here we can use has gained. So the clothing store, the famous clothing store that he has started, had the reputation and still has the reputation. So can you see in this part, you can use either the past simple or the present perfect. Both of them can be applicable. Now there are other exercises that are in the lesson of the form, meaning, and function. We have here complete the conversation using the present perfect and the simple present, then practice with a partner. You have here like short dialogues or short conversations. We have here number 1, for example, have you ever given to charity? No. Have you? Now you can see that we are talking using the present perfect. So I can say, no, I haven't. Have you? Yes, I blank some clothes and books. An action that happened in the past. So I can say that we have here, yes, I gave. That's great. I want to make a donation too. We have here also another part in the same question. We have here number 2. We have also other parts that you are going to apply as homework, and we are going to inshallah do them inshallah in the next lesson. So you have a lot of homework in the book to just go on to revise the difference between the past simple and the present perfect. As for our lesson, which is the form, meaning, and function lesson, we have here the form is the past simple, present perfect simple, using how long, for, since, and we have here have you ever for experience. Now we have the meaning, of course, to understand the difference between the two structures in meaning, and we have here the function asking and telling about personal experiences using have you ever. Now we can see that there are a lot of points that we have to focus on within our lesson. You can just go back, revise, do your homework, and be ready.